What's going on, YouTube family? It's been a while since I have been here with an update for you guys on what I'm doing, where I'm at in my process and my journey. I'm sure you guys recently saw the podcast I posted with Anson. I've still been, working on content, joining him on his channel for his pods, things like that. Also, even working on pods for my channel. Unfortunately, had quite a few technical difficulties with a few that we recorded. Had my buddy Max on for one, recorded one with him, audio issue. Had Anson on for another one, audio issue. So had some issues there, but finally got one to air, and thought it was definitely time to, make sure that I'm being consistent with posting and just bringing what I'm doing with my journey and where I'm at, all that. So wanted to bring these talks back. Just again, going over my process, where I'm at. So the last time I got on here and gave an update, I think I had just gotten done with getting an echo test, or was about to get an echo test, had to get a kidney ultrasound, had to get CT scans, all that good stuff, just to make sure, because I was having some blood pressure issues. Blood pressure was through the roof, which to the point it was, causing some severe uncomfortability, and couldn't figure out why it wasn't coming down, was on blood pressure meds, all that stuff. Got the test done, got everything done, the echo test, everything looked totally fine. I had a little bit of left ventricle hypertrophy from just playing sports throughout my life. Again, I would not relate this to PEDs. I haven't been on PEDs long enough for it to really have made that much of an impact. And I haven't really taken doses that high for long enough for anything to really be caused from that. So I think it was just a combination of having higher blood pressure as a kid and always being an athlete, because they started looking through my chart, saw all these readings of higher blood pressure. I'm sure I touched on that all through the last video, but long story short, switched up my blood pressure meds protocol. Blood pressure has been great. I started feeling so much better immediately after that, but still took a nice long health phase just to make sure everything was coming back down in range and staying in range where it needed to be blood pressure wise, making sure that my labs were good, all that stuff. Started actually using some other supplements as well that I'm actually now a pretty big believer in. One of them being nattokinase. That is an absolute game changer. It just does a lot for the viscosity of your blood. And if you're on cycle, I would definitely say that is something that you should 100% have in your health supplement protocol, nattokinase. I'm using one that has CoQ10 in it as well. The nattokinase is dosed at 12,000 FPS, or FUs, sorry. I said FPS like it's feet per second. But it's dosed at 12,000 FUs, whatever exactly that means, I'm not sure. But I know that that's one of the higher dose nattokinases that you can get, especially it being just one tablet dose that high, so that's great. Then I've bumped up my fish oil dosing significantly as well, up to like 6 grams total of EPA and DHA daily. So that has been another thing where I was just doing about 2 grams. I would do a gram in the morning, gram in the evening, sometimes 2 grams in the morning. Wasn't really too adamant about having a hefty dose of that, but I did take it, obviously. But that dosing has went up significantly. And then I'm also on, amlodipine, which is a blood pressure medication, telmisartan, that was already in there before. But then I'm also on cardavolol, which helps with just heart rate, and how fast your heart's beating. So that has helped a ton, man, just to help me feel better across the board, man. My energy has went up just from blood pressure being better. My sleep is better. My performance in the gym is 10 times better. So I would equate all that to being, my blood pressure just getting better. Because even when I was on, in my health phase, taking no gear, no GH, my strength was just continuing to climb. And I can honestly only equate that to just feeling better and better week to week, blood pressure being in a better spot. So guys, and this is more for my veteran people, because I know you guys are just starting out. Everything's fun and new and exciting. So like checking your blood pressure all the time, it's fun. Checking your glucose all the time, it's fun. After you've been doing it for years, it starts to get to the point where you feel like you almost get complacent and like confident in your ability to just be so self-aware that you can feel if your blood pressure is a little higher. You can feel if your glucose is low or high or whatever. But man, especially after all this, guys, don't do that. Just go ahead and check it. It takes an extra couple seconds, extra minute or whatever to check your blood pressure. Go ahead and check it and make sure that everything is good to go there. But enough rambling about that. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to compete in November 8th. I'm going to do the Elite Muscle Classic. Tonio Burton's going to be there guest posing. So super excited for that. I honestly, after all this, I didn't know exactly what my like timeline was for what I was trying to do, because initially after the win last year, my mindset was set on a national show and doing everything I could to be ready for nationals. And to be honest with you, and just to be real with myself, I think I need just like one more year of progression, of getting, bigger, denser, to fill out being a little bit taller of a bodybuilder. So I feel like I might just need another year or so. So I wanted to at least still get on stage this year. So this is a later show in the year. So that's giving me time to kind of put on a little bit more size here, and just really keeping things mild on the surplus as far as food, and just kind of allowing like somewhat of a recomp to happen. I'm kind of at maintenance with my food, throwing in the super subs again. Training is going up, volume has went up a bit with my training, doing slightly different split, just to get the body filled all the way back out pretty evenly. So volume's basically evenly distributed across the board with everything. Chest, I'm doing push pull leg split, but it's legs push pull, so that legs are always hit when they're freshest. But that being said, yeah, that's basically the goal, is to just get everything in the system, get esters resaturated, get training to continue to improve, and then kind of allow the body to recomp. My body does a pretty good job at just when things get thrown in, as long as I just keep my meals pretty consistent and don't push a crazy surplus, and I don't really need to push a crazy deficit, I'll just start recomping pretty quickly. So I just keep my steps high. I might do like some intermittent cardio through the day. So I like to do bouts of like 15 to 20 minute cardio stints. Obviously I'll do like in the morning immediately fasted, I'll do a walk with my dog. And then after that, I might do 15 minutes, 20 minutes on the spin bike when I get back. Then I'll have, meal one. And then later on in the day, I'll do another couple walks, and then maybe even another 30-minute spin bike session. I've honestly just been gauging it on how recovered I am, and trying to just keep as much of that as I can, and as high as I can right now at the front end of all this, but away from my leg training, so it's not impeding any of my leg training. And honestly, if I start noticing my recovering's dipping too much and I'm not able to keep up with my training sessions, I just taper that cardio down a little bit. I might pull one session out and swap it in for a walk, things like that. But I've seen huge success doing cardio that way for my I've only done 2 shows now, but both of those shows, that was kind of the way I did cardio. And not to say that I would do 15 minutes, 5 times a day or whatever, and just do these little stints, but I might do, a 40-minute stint in the morning, and then later in the evening, I might do 25 with some walks in between, or I might do 25 in the morning, 25 midday, 25 later that day, something like that, where I will just try to hammer it away until I start seeing, hey, the body is getting in pretty good condition. We're, metabolism's picking up. We're rolling downhill. That's kind of what I'm looking for here, is just to get that snowball effect, essentially, where everything is just rolling downhill, and we're at that point then trying to just keep up with the body. We know condition's going to keep coming on at a rapid rate. We're going to continue to get in condition. So then it's just a matter of kind of playing around with, increasing calories, and then that's where you can kind of start to grow into the show. If you can get ahead on condition and start being able to feed yourself a little bit more through that time, then you're going to start filling out more. You're going to be able to pull back on cardio, things like that. So I'm hitting it really hard. We're at like 23 weeks out or something like that, 24 weeks out. And not to say that it's anything crazy. I don't have any fat burners in or anything like that. I'm just kind of hitting it hard from the high frequency cardio standpoint. And honestly, it has saved my legs a ton. My legs are pretty good. They're not getting too overtaxed or anything like that. And it's helping tighten things up pretty quickly. And again, I have no stimulants, no fat burners in, other than a Monster Energy in the morning. And then I've got some Retta in play, which has been in play and stays in play pretty much year round. So 2 mgs of Retta, that's a standard. And then GH has been very infrequent, just trying to get my blood glucose in a better spot. So GH has been very infrequent, and then post-workout, I've been taking that. So like today was a leg day. I definitely wanted to make sure I got it in. So I did 5 IUs post-workout. Was doing it pre-bed, And I was on a pod with Anson a couple weeks ago, was even explaining how I thought that I had finally unlocked the way that I can do it pre-bed, and that was very short-lived. It was like 3 days in, and then my sleep just went to shit. And I thought, hey, maybe it's not the GH, so I tried it again the next night, and same thing again. So I just pulled it out, and sure enough, it subsided the following night. So my thoughts there are just, if it works for you pre-bed, hey, take it pre-bed. But for some reason, it disrupts my sleep, and I know, it's very beneficial to have in the plan. So I've just kind of figured out that it works better for me either post-workout or fasted in the morning. If I do it before fasted cardio, or even pre-training is good. Basically, anywhere that I'm gonna metabolically burn that GH off. But if I'm taking it and just sitting around or going to bed, for some reason it disrupts my sleep, and then my glucose also gets pretty skewed pretty quickly. So to each his own with that, and I guess it just doesn't work for me that way. I've tried it that way many times, and for some reason I always revert back to either fasted in post-training, or fasted pre-training, something like that, where basically I can metabolically, again, utilize that growth hormone, burn off all those fatty acids that are going to be freed up. All that good stuff takes place. That is when I see the best benefit from GH and no negatives. So I'm just going to continue to do that instead of trying to, do what everyone else is doing just because everyone else is doing it. Got to stick to what's working. And that being said, onto the gear side of things. Initially, when we started out, test was at 420 would have been the dosing. And then EQ was at 350. And then I had MPP in at 280 just to kind of initially fill things out. And I was using Anadrol for the first few days of this. Again, few days. It was like 3 days of Anadrol at 100 megs. But the weight and the way I was filling out so quickly, I had to stop it. I gained like 12 pounds in like no time at all. 3 days, literally. I was like, all right, that's plenty. So pulled that out. And then right now, I wanted to just kind of allow the EQ to saturate a bit before I had my test way through the roof, because I wanted some of that estrogen management to be kind of kicked in before I started sliding my test up. Where in the past, I've had the tests, that ester is going to build up a lot quicker, basically, than the equipoise is. So in my mind, I was like, let's let the EQ saturate a bit more first. So the first like 2.5, 3 weeks. It was 3 weeks, I think. Test was at 420. EQ stayed at 350. And then I started noticing my joints were getting pretty dry. I was starting to feel pretty dry. Feeling that EQ start to saturate in there. So then I bumped the test up. It was up to 6. I think it went up to the next incremental jump would have been 630, I believe it was. Something like that. And then rode that for a few days just to make sure that I didn't have any crazy water swings. Again, guys, I've been known to just kind of blow up with water when I start scaling the test up. So I'm just trying to take it slow. And I know that, even 3 or 4 days and then bumping it up again isn't that slow, but I'm trying to just let it build up, play around with about how long the ester is going to take to build up in my system, and where it's already been saturated in my system somewhat from dosing it a little bit lower before. I feel like making those little jumps isn't too bad. So I bumped it up to the 630, and then now it is at 870. And I think I'm going to keep it there. I slid that up to 870. The EQ came up to 630. And then the MPP was totally removed when the Anadrol was removed. Just kind of wanted to switch gears before I got too far down that hole. Because initially I was like, yeah, we need to fill out. And then when that happened really quickly, I was like, okay, we actually probably need to just play it safe, play it modest. The body's going to grow regardless if I'm throwing in, all these wet compounds or not. I don't necessarily need to be doing that. So what I did there is just, instead of using that, I plugged in Tren E at 140 mgs, very low dose. It would have even started it lower, but the Tren E that I have is 200 mgs per mil. So to keep dosing simple, the lowest dose I can start with on that without doing all these half markings and things like that is 20 mgs. So I threw that in, but to get that initial, get the feeling and get the ball rolling and get those benefits going pretty quickly from a fat loss standpoint and all that, and just that harder look that Tren is going to bring to just tighten the physique up. I threw in 10 mgs a day of ACE. So I'm going to leave those both in there together. I actually kind of like that combination. Sleep has been fine from an hours and length of sleep that I'm getting, but I will say this. This is one thing I've noticed since doing this. And maybe you just don't notice it when you're deep in prep because your CNS is shot anyway. But I will say that even when I get a good night's sleep and I get deep sleep, I get REM sleep, I get all the zones of sleep that I need, I use my CPAP, my CNS is taking a lot longer to recover with the trend in play. When the MPP was in the mix, sleep was again still really good. Everything felt great, but I would wake up and I didn't feel like I was still kind of like taxed, like you just feel zapped a little bit, like wired but tired almost. And I've noticed with the trend in play that kind of sticks around, and then as you get moving through the day, you're fine. But initially, you can tell like your CNS isn't recovered. So I don't know if maybe that's just because it gets you so charged up or whatever in your training, and you're able to call on a lot more. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just the energy that it does, pull and create that also drains the CNS a bit. But I will say when I just had the MPP in, even with the same hours of sleep and stuff like that, I would wake up and just feel a lot like fresher. Where with the trend in play, it's interesting how I'll wake up and it's like, man, I'm feeling a little bit more beat up in between sessions and things like that. And then, like I said, once I get going and get moving, get to the gym, feel all right, get some caffeine in my system or whatever in the morning, I'm all right. But I will say that's an interesting note that I guess in the past where I've just kind of plugged it in later into the prep or whatever, I hadn't really noticed it because, like I said, you're probably already so tired and exhausted at that point. There's other stimulants in there that are causing kind of that same little effect. You don't really notice that when that goes in. But this going in after, right at the front end of the whole thing, basically, I will say that is for sure something I'm noticing. So gonna keep an eye on that and just make sure I'm not way overtaxing myself, especially at the front end of the prep where I'm trying to, really improve and make some more gains, put on some more size, but still, pull that body fat down. So, not trying to overdo it right here at the front end. There's no need. I've got such a long runway, and I did that on purpose, man. I wanted to have a lot of time to get prepared so that it wasn't like, digging down really hard, really quickly. And then that's, we got to take that all the way into the show. Where last year when I did this show, I wasn't for sure about competing a second time through the year. And then I kind of decided a little bit late, not even late, but I decided at like 15 weeks out that I was going to. And I was in, full steam into an off season. So I just immediately switched gears, went the other way. Where now it's like I've gotten my mind made up all the way here, this far out. So the approach is going to be able to be a lot different, and I want to take it a lot more mild and just easier, so that I can land the plane and have a really just awesome look. I want to be really full but really peeled, and I feel like the best way to do that is to just take my time through the prep, pull the body fat down nice and slow. Don't do anything too drastic with, the crazy fat burners or anything until I need to. But also, I really want to try to, like I've explained at the beginning, I want to try to get ahead on condition. So I want to be way conditioned, way far out. And I'm not talking about stage lean, but I want to just be way further ahead for like that 15-week out mark. When I get there, I want it to be like, hey, we're already at like the 7 week out mark. And then that way I can kind of fill up, flatten out, and just, we're not going to be losing any tissue. If anything, I can improve through that phase if it's done right. And as long as I'm just, being very mindful and assessing the photos as closely as I need to, sending them to my coach, having him look over them as well. And we just, come up with the best game plan. And in a perfect world, man, everything is going to go great. And it's going to be like, hey, you should do a national show this year. Because I did put on significant size. And I guess I allowed myself to kind of get in my head. I did get to 300 pounds this offseason, though, pretty respectable condition. Improvements were made to the legs. Improvements were made everywhere. And I guess when I just, came off everything, you get a little softer. I kind of got discouraged in my head, like, oh, man, you got all that, you put on all that size for it to not look good or for you to not be improved. And then, as soon as things started back up, I can see everything coming right back to life. So maybe I will be, ready. But at this point, I'm just going to focus on getting ready for that one show, the Elite Muscle Classic, November 8th, Greensboro, North Carolina. Tonio Burton again is going to be guest posing. Last year we had Jordan Hutchinson. Now we got Tonio, so that'll be dope to get to see him in person, get to meet him, chat it up with him a bit, pick his brain a little bit, hopefully. So I'm super excited about that, man. But yeah, other than that, I guess I could touch on my training a little bit. I did switch that up some. So what I did, and like I kind of mentioned at the beginning, is my whole off season was kind of very geared towards leg dominant split, basically. So that consisted of basically 3 different leg days, and one of them being more of like a posterior day. So it had my only back volume at all was on that day, which I had 6 working sets of back, and then everything else was hamstring focused. And then I had a third leg day that was kind of a full leg day. So it was a quad focus day, a posterior day, and then another full leg day, basically. And that worked great. I feel like it definitely helped and put on the size where I needed, drove up like just the volumization of my legs. Could store a lot more glycogen there. They just get, I can pump them up a lot better now. I feel like that was what I was missing before, was I was just so focused on how heavy I could go on everything. I wasn't quite getting the volumization that I needed in my legs, where lightening it up a little bit more on some things, I'll say, lightening it up a little bit, focusing on just crazy slow contractions, getting crazy pumps, driving as much blood in there as I could, and then lifting some heavy weight, but basically pyramiding up and having these what would you call them, like builder sets, I guess, pyramid sets, where you're just like really just forcing blood into the tissue, and then having like a really heavy set. That seemed to help, versus that first set just being all out heavy. Kind of having, do a set of like 15, then another set of like 12 to 15, then a set of like, 15 again maybe, and then having one crazy heavy set of like 8 or something seemed to work really well. But now what I'm doing is it's a balanced split. It's push, pull legs, but legs go first. So it's legs, push, pull, rest. Then it's another legs, just hamstring focused, push, pull, and then another rest day. At volumes, super evenly balanced across the board. So everything seems to, or is going to get filled out at a much more even rate, versus having so much volume driven just to legs. I feel like, especially right now at this phase that I'm in, that was just probably not the smartest move. Yes, legs need to be improved, but when I'm trying to like bring everything back to life and fill back out, put on the size, recomp kind of thing, I feel like having the even distribution of volume is going to be the best approach, hands down. Just like I said, to fill out everything evenly, get the upper body just as hard and as dense as the lower body, because my legs seem to be in really good condition already, and I would attribute that to just the way that the training's been set up. So kind of trying to shift gears and bring that whole focus and mindset to the entire body now. But other than that, that is pretty much where we're at in the journey and what I'm doing. Appreciate you guys for keeping up with everything I got going on. And make sure you guys like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Much love to you guys, and stay tuned for everything. I will make sure that I keep these updates coming along.